My course paper topic was on the journalistic portrayal of police officers in the media. My research and literature review on the topic was to answer the question, do journalists negatively portray police officers in the media? As a recently retired Illinois police officer, this was an important topic I wanted to research and a question I hope to answer. Media and law enforcement tend to walk in familiar circles and their paths cross very often. As police officers, we are instructed not to speak with the press and refer all journalistic communications to our chief of police or public information officer. Because of deadlines, journalists frequently attempt to obtain information or comment from police officers on scene. Because our department policies prevent that dialogue from occurring, a type of adversarial relationship is left in place between police officers and the media. Today's fast-paced media world and equally fast-changing demographic of police-related incidents across America has caused those in media to focus more on police policies and procedures than ever before. One of the main topics of focus are cases involving alleged police brutality against minority citizens. Several highly publicized police brutality cases have emerged in the mainstream media in recent years. Additionally, many studies have been conducted to highlight incidents of police brutality, institutional racism, and racial profiling in the police culture. In the case of the Laquan McDonald shooting in Chicago, a study was conducted into the investigation to develop transparency and demand accountability. The journalists involved in the study wanted to know why the video wasn't released to the public sooner. The study showed a culture of cover-up or failure to act by the police department, the mayor, and the Cook County State's attorney. Following lawsuits filed in this matter by journalistic team involved in the study, all video evidence involving Chicago police shootings must be made available to the public within 48 hours. The journalistic portrayal of police officers in this case was extremely negative. A study was conducted to see if police officers or the persons encountered by police officers acted differently when police officers wore body-worn cameras. The study included 2,224 active police officers from the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., and involved a two-level blocking approach. The major blocks were from 7 police districts and specialized assignments, and the minor blocks were selected using a clustering algorithm based on background characteristics of the officers. The main findings of the journalistic study pointed to no significant increase or decrease in behavior during police encounters when body-worn cameras were present. The journalistic study pointed toward a positive result as related to law enforcement. A Maryland study was conducted regarding the concerns of the public regarding the use of militarized equipment and vehicles by law enforcement. There were concerns that specialized weapons and tactics officers, SWAT officers, use this militarized equipment and vehicles disproportionately in communities of people of color. The findings suggested that aggressive law enforcement strategies are disproportionately applied to citizens of color, and militarized equipment was predominantly used in African American communities. The journalistic study only showed the negative aspects of the use of militarized equipment by law enforcement officers and did not address the need for SWAT teams to use militarized equipment in the first place. SWAT teams and militarized equipment are more frequently used in racially marginalized communities because those communities have higher crime statistics, and more importantly, higher violent crime statistics. Increased gun violence in those communities dictates the need for heavier armored officers and equipment to keep the law enforcement officers safe from violent assault. A journalistic study was conducted into the actions of police at social movement protests in New York State between 1968 and 1973. The perception was police acted with overzealous repression of protests during that time period. The results revealed police did not attend the majority of the protests. The study concluded protests which posed a threat, large protests, confrontational protests, and those protests which supported radical views drew higher police presence. The study showed that during a period of U.S. history known for police violence and police riots, the study showed police usually did not resort to force to control protests. The fact police did not attend many of these events was extremely underreported. This was a positive journalistic portrayal of police officers in the media. A growing number of do-it-yourself media cop watcher groups are taking to the streets and social media demanding police accountability. Some become involved as a form of activism and others as a civic duty. Others become involved in cop watching activities because of prior negative encounters they had with police officers. The do-it-yourself cop watchers who went on the streets during the study yielded no video involving police overreach. This was a negative portrayal of police officers by journalists, which ended favorably for those officers involved. The results of the literature review I conducted show police officers are more likely to enforce crime in areas with the greatest need for police services. The areas with the greatest need for police services are predominantly low-income minority communities. Routinely, police are forced to overcome combative subjects during arrest situations with the use of force techniques and specialized weapons. Minorities are more likely to have a negative opinion of police use of force actions and feel they use force disproportionately against minority citizens. Public perception of police officers is easily affected by negative encounters. Minority communities have a negative opinion in the use of militarized equipment in their communities. Police departments explain the need for militarized equipment is directly related to the increased risk law enforcement officers face in high crime areas. Police chiefs and rank and file police officers have a negative impression of the news media. Police chiefs understand there is a need for media journalists in situations where they need to release information to the general public and the community. Journalists rarely receive training in college or follow-up training from their prospective media agencies in criminal justice specialization. If media were to receive specialized criminal justice training, it may help bridge the divide between media and law enforcement. There is a growing number of cop watchers, do-it-yourself media seeking to catch police officers violating the public trust. Most of these cop watchers become interested in law enforcement accountability activism in direct response to negative encounters they had with police. Police officers who wear body-worn cameras are no more or less likely to be involved in use of force situations, and the body-worn cameras are no more or less likely to influence the behavior of citizens involved in police encounters. Contrary to what it was reported routinely before, law enforcement officers did not routinely resort to force to control protests. Police officers were more selective in their decision to attend protests. Protests which posed a threat drew a higher police presence. The media reports the stories told to them by citizens and community leaders. My findings were that media is no more likely to report negatively about police officers. However, it is that the sensationalized stories are the ones told most often. The feel-good reporting in media usually takes a backseat to the more enticing stories they believe their viewers want to see. Those stories are frequently negative, unfortunately. Thank you for your time.